Celebration time. It don't matter what part of the jewel you come from. You da you and me da me. But guess what? All are we the one. See what I mean? Jump and shout all over the nation. We're breaking out with a new creation.
Cecil Mckoy and Raymond Peters have been lifelong friends. The two men migrated to the United States of America decades ago. Our Belize Watch team sat down with the duo, and we will have their stories after we hear from our partners. Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust, the Barry, Shell Belize, and the National Gas Company.
The National Gas Company Limited was born of the need for the country of Belize to have a marine gas terminal of its own, thereby securing supplies of critical cooking gas for a growing population. As Belize's population grew, the time came for a modern marine gas terminal that ensured safety, security of supply, and the requisite infrastructure for industry-accepted quality assurance now demanded by the people of Belize. In 2020, the National Gas Company Limited became a reality. The National Gas Company Limited is a $60 million public-private partnership where Belize's private sector would design, finance, construct, and manage a state-of-the-art national marine terminal facility and 2 complementary storage depots away from the coast. After 15 years, the National Gas Company would be fully turned over to the country and people of Belize at no cost to the taxpayer. The National Gas Company of Belize, fueling Belize forward.
Since 2008, the Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust has created opportunities for Belizeans to develop themselves and their communities. The Trust employs tools that are intuitive, collaborative, and accessible so that every Belizean is empowered to achieve their full potential. Over 200,000 Belizeans have been impacted because of our various initiatives. The Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust, empowering Belizeans of today to create the Belize of tomorrow.
We are the Barry, offering you great products, good service, and of course, the lowest prices in the entire country. Visit us in Belize City, Belmopan, San Ignacio Cayo, Orange, and now in San Pedro, La Isla Bonita. The Barry. Get more? Be less.
Shell V-Power, with 3 times more cleaning and friction-reducing molecules. Go well. Go Shell.
It don't matter what part of the jewel you come from. You da you and me da me.
And I'm at the home of my good friend Uncle C, better known as Cecil Mckoy. And he also has another friend with him, which is Raymond Peters. And we're going to be talking to both gentlemen at this point in time about their various experiences about Belize, about the diaspora, and, well, we'll see, right? So thank you so much, Cecil, for having me here, and thank you so much, Raymond, for being a part of this discussion. Now, let's start off with you, Uncle C, right? Uncle C. Cecil Mckoy was born in Belize City. Let's see. You have been on shows with me already, so let's reintroduce you.
Okay, my name is Cecil Mckoy. I am the son of Mildred Flowers and Carl McCoy. I was born in Belize City, Belize. I lived in Belize for 16 years before I migrated to Belize, and I want to thank God for the 16 years that I lived in Belize, my earlier years, because that's what made me the man that I am today.
So you migrated to the U.S. when you were 16 years old.
Yes.
Right? I have to remember that, but let's get to know Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Raymond Peters.
Raymond Peters, my mom, who passed away just a little over 2 years ago, Emma Jean Peters, my dad, Selvin Peters, he was a boatman. He works out at the, with United Fruit Company. And there's so many joy in growing up, you know, especially on the seas. Mm-hmm. He took, when he was going away, he always, if he had the opportunity, he always took us with us. So it gave us an opportunity to see a large part of the, especially by sea, a large part of the country. I remember being young when we went out to Ambergris Key. There was no Ambergris Key as it is today. Yeah. As a matter of fact, they had to go out there for some reason, and so he took his children with him. And that time, I don't know about now, but I know we had to use a pilot to get us across to Ambergris Key. Okay. And then in 1952, I was 7 years old. We moved to Dangriga, which was Stan Creek at the time. And up until now, I still have a deep love for Stan Creek.
Dangriga, the culture capital.
Yeah, we went to the Anglican school there, the St. John's School, and at that time, in front of the school was a large field, and that's where all the planes, the little planes that used to land. And those memories just don't go away. I remember Scotsman's Tongue, I think that was the name of it. Zabeni was always where it is right now, at the bridge there. But my dad had this job with Bowman. I don't know if he's still in, the company itself is still in existence. We spent perhaps about a year in Stan Creek, but it's amazing how 1 year in a child's life can leave such an impact.
Uncle C, like your friend Raymond, did you live anywhere else outside of Belize City before migrating to the U.S.?
No, I did not. I visited Dangriga when I was about 6 years old. I don't remember anything about the districts other than Belize.
So you only knew Belize City? Only Belize City?
Only Belize City. Okay. Yeah.
So he grew up in Dangriga. You only knew Belize City, right? When he grew up in Belize City and moved to Dangriga for 1 year, fell in love with Dangriga. And Dangriga, it's easy to fall in love with Dangriga, you know? That's not a hard thing to do, you know?
Yes, in those days, you know, I never forget. I think the street was, I have a good memory about things from, I think that street was St. Augustine Street, I think it was. And my mom was pregnant with my brother Michael because, as I said, that was in 1952. He was born later on in the year in October of 1952. And we lived in a yard where Miss Flores and Miss Thompson, they were actually the owner of the property, but I imagine whomever my dad was working with rented that property. It was a new house on stilts. And I could remember every night those goats coming in the yard. It was all brown sand. Okay. And because my mom was pregnant at the time, Miss Flores used to take the white bucket to the water. It wasn't too far where the sea was. Mm-hmm. And I remember so many times at night because Heron H used to leave Belize on Tuesdays. It used to leave on Tuesdays and Saturdays. But on Saturdays, it doesn't go all the way, I think, to PG. So when it leaves on Tuesdays, I think it came back Friday morning to Belize City. Mm-hmm. And I could see that boat from our window where we were living at the time, that boat passing by Tuesday night. I think it was going to Sati River.
Yeah.
going farther down, right?
Yeah.
And that boat, when it was really, really rough out there, we could just see the lights. As kids, you know, it looks like the lights on the boat, they go underneath the water. Then they come back up again, you know. And you still have memories of these things, you know. And the time they were, at the old pier was there. So OCL and Sarawee, they were there at the time too, you know. And so it's such a wonderful memory. I was 7. Now I'm 77 years old.
Maya Prince, Honduran.
And those things are still vivid, you know. And so the 20 years that I spent in Belize, because I left in October 29th, 1965, but those 20 years has built such a foundation, it's not easy to forget.
You will never forget that, right? Is that the same with you, Uncle C? Let's talk about your 15 years before you migrated to the U.S.
I can go back to when I was 4 years old.
We always talk about that.
You always talk about it? So, okay, well, yeah, feel free.
I remember my grandfather's name was Stephen Flowers, and he was leaving my grandmother at the time. I lived on Racecourse Street, 2 houses from the corner of the canal side. Raymond lived, Miss Annette Mehere School was right on the corner, and Raymond lived 1 house behind Miss Annette Mehere School. So this evening, one night, for whatever reason, my grandfather was leaving home. And I remember 4 years old running behind him saying, "Papa, don't leave, Papa, don't leave."
Okay.
And he went to market where they had Courthouse Wharf behind the clock. And the government set up stalls for them there, timber, and I can't even remember Mr. Stanford. And they were there for a while, and then the government moved them from there, where Scotch Church was or is, and put them on North Front Street in front of Mr. Bunton Fuller and Fairweather House. Yeah, my grandfather's stall was the first stall by the VAT. That's where his stall was. And I can remember going out there as a little boy, stealing his coconut boy and his bananas and, you know.
Were you caught?
No, he used to work at the sawmill, and my uncle Jerry Lees, he's now Reverend Flowers, his youngest son. We used to paddle in the canal from my house, paddle through that canal and come all the way and go across the river in a little dory. We used to rent a dory and go to my grandfather, and we get little things for the house and come back home. And we did that for years. I went to St. John's School, primary school on Racecourse Street. I remember guys like Kenan Hubbard, you know, Dean Russell.
Kenan Hubbard. In 1955, we had what we called, I never forget it, May 2nd, 1955.
Yes.
We had what we call combined Boy Scout.
Yes.
So that year, from May 2nd, 1955 to May 16th, which was 2 weeks, we went to Middlesex.
Yes.
And Kenan Hubbard was the overseer.
Yes.
We had scouts from St. John's, St. Mary's,
Yes.
Westland, some of the others, you know.
All the schools.
Yeah.
All the schools had scouts. Scouts was, the scout movement was very big at that time.
Yes.
Yeah, never forget that.
My scout master was Mr. Hope. Remember Mr. Hope?
Charlie Hope.
Charlie Hope.
Charlie Hope, yeah.
And after him, it was
Lamont.
yes, Mr. Limott. As a matter of fact, Mr. Limott's sister still call me every now and again.
Very good.
Yes.
I'm happy you guys were involved in the Scout movement, I know the Scout movement has done a lot of good.
Gills Beach, remember?
Walking from Belize, from the city,
Yes.
along the coast,
The coast,
all the way to Gills.
yes, as Boy
We
Scout.
slept overnight at the school.
Yes.
At St. John's School, we slept overnight, and we left early in the morning.
And we slept at the beach one night too.
Yeah.
We slept with
yeah.
Claire
So
Road.
you two knew each other in
Yeah,
Belize.
we
You
went-
grew up together, both of you.
Raymond is a week older than I am.
May 15th is May 22nd.
So you used to go when he used to take the things from his grandfather. You were around too. He never used to share with you.
What we used to do as little boys, we would go under Miss Annette Mehere, under the light post at Miss Annette Mehere's school. And it would be Lucent Willis, Stephen Cowie,
Everloyd,
Charles Everloyd, Nelson Lord, and we used to sing under the lamppost. We used to, like the Blue Notes.
Oh, yes.
We were singers, we didn't give from that. And at 9 o'clock, everybody knew they were home.
You gotta get home by 9 o'clock, right, or else.
But we were so free, though. Your parents could let you out. They don't do it today, from what I know. But from we were about 9, 10, 11 years old, they turned us loose.
We used to go to
Society
Landiva
was so
Fair,
safe.
walk to Landiva Fair when we were about 10, 12 years old.
It was so safe. The streets were so safe for kids, They never
And
had
when you're
any
talking
fear.
about walking to Landiva Fair, people will say, okay, you're talking that's where SJC is more or less, right? That's where the fair was held. And people would say, well, that's not a bad walk. But in those days, Belize City ended at Palote, if you can recall, at the Palote Junction. It also ended where the fisheries department is. So for you to reach Landiva, you had to walk on a...
And at the time, we only had one bridge.
Tell us about that experience walking to Landiva, even before Princess Margaret Drive was built, or while it was being built.
Well,
You had to fill in that whole area to reclaim the area from the swamp.
that part of my walking there, I don't remember. We used to walk through high grass, cutting grass. Yes, to get there. And it was like trail walk.
It's a trail walk. It wasn't this Princess Margaret Drive that we drive on today.
No, yes, it was a trail walk. And like Ray said, it was safe because we were up there until 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we would walk home as kids to Race Course Street. And our parents would allow us to do that, We don't do that often, like I said. During the week, 9 o'clock comes, it's time to come home. They don't have to call you. Sometimes they walk to the door and they look outside. They don't have to say anything. It's time to come home. You go to pipe, you wash your foot, and you go inside.
You also touch another thing that brings back some memory of old Belize City, which is you go to pipe. In those days you had no running water, no sewage, so you had to go to the pipes that were at each street corner. Almost every 2 or 3 streets corner, you had a standing pipe that you would pump water, and so when you talk about go to pipe, that's what you're taking there.
We had 3 pipes, one in front of Pilgrim, then the one by that was Brooklyn Bridge. We used to call that on Race Course.
Yeah.
Then by Aunt Joyce.
By Aunt Joyce.
Yeah. And at night, because when I was growing up, it seems like I was, although I was maybe 14, 15 years old, it seemed like I was kind of already strong. I got it from my dad. And I had 2 buckets. And when that drum goes low, I think it was 55 gallons. Yes. When that drum goes low, I was the one at night carrying those shell pans. They used to call. Yeah, and I used to fill that drum all by myself.
Carry 2 buckets.
But Joyce's faucet was more closer to the alley there,
yes.
so that's where I used to get it from.
Did you guys used to make your cart to put your buckets of water in? Because I can remember doing that as a little boy myself on Freetown Road. We had to pump water the same way from the standpipe in front of the house. and take it across. And so we would make little trucks and little carts to put the buckets in, so you can pull the buckets as against backing the buckets. Did you have that experience?
No, I never made a cart. The same way like Ray, we carried 2 buckets.
By hand?
Yes. Sometimes one on your head and one carrying on your
And
hand.
it's hard, man. At least you make some cart.
When we come back, McCoy and Peters share their early experiences in the United States. Peters recalls his years of combat in the Vietnam War and how the experience impacted his life. We take a break to hear from the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations.
The future is ours. This is Belize. We welcome you back home, if only for a visit. The government of Belize is committed to mobilizing a productive partnership with you, the diaspora. With that in mind, the government has created the Diaspora Relations Unit within the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations. The general objectives of the unit are to raise Belize's profile on the international stage, grow the economy by increasing exports and attracting inward investments, promote trade, provide information and support to Belizeans abroad, encourage expertise exchange and identify opportunities for philanthropy. Developing an effective relationship with each of you will offer a platform from which to showcase Belize's excellence and generate much-needed exchange of ideas and resources. Our vision: an inclusive and participatory Belizean society, where every Belizean contributes to national development and shares in the benefits thereof, notwithstanding place of residency. Composition of the unit: Ambassador for Diaspora Relations, non-resident, Senior Liaison Officer, Liaison Officer, Secretary, Office Assistant. Knowing and understanding you is crucial to engaging effectively. You must be involved and included in the development of our country. We will engage you through our registry, online outreach, other initiatives, and awareness campaigns tailored to bringing you back home while enjoying the benefits offered. Empowering our diaspora includes mobilizing the transfer of skills and resources. Government will empower this process by introducing special measures and programs in different fields of expertise. Dissemination of information is key and serves to heighten awareness of various products and services. Our website is one such example of empowering our Belizeans abroad. Through the website, valuable information will be shared worldwide with you, the members of the diaspora. Maintaining the connection is widely regarded as important for the development of our country. Staying connected will give you access to regularly updated news, relevant resources, learning and funding opportunities. We encourage you to stay connected to your home country by participating in programs designed to facilitate diaspora engagement. The interaction we have with you is only going to increase as technology and communications allow you to play a role without returning home. In addition to remittances, you have contributed generously to the Belizean community by donating food, clothing, education, and medical supplies. The Diaspora Relations Unit is committed to maintaining active connections with you as we continue to create positive changes in our country. We are always here for you. Visit our website at belizediaspora.bz or email us at diaspora.relations@tourism.gov.bz.
The National Gas Company Limited was born of the need for the country of Belize to have a marine gas terminal of its own, thereby securing supplies of critical cooking gas for a growing population. As Belize's population grew, the time came for a modern marine gas terminal that ensured safety, security of supply, and the requisite infrastructure for industry-accepted quality assurance now demanded by the people of Belize. In 2020, the National Gas Company Limited became a reality. The National Gas Company Limited is a $60 million public-private partnership where Belize's private sector would design, finance, construct and manage a state-of-the-art national marine terminal facility and 2 complementary storage depots away from the coast. After 15 years, the National Gas Company would be fully turned over to the country and people of Belize at no cost to the taxpayer. The National Gas Company of Belize, fueling Belize forward.
Since 2008, the Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust has created opportunities for Belizeans to develop themselves and their communities. The trust employs tools that are intuitive, collaborative, and accessible so that every Belizean is empowered to achieve their full potential. Over 200,000 Belizeans have been impacted because of our various initiatives. The Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust, empowering Belizeans of today to create the Belize of tomorrow.
We are the Barry, offering you great products, good service, and of course, the lowest prices in the entire country. Visit us in Belize City, Belmopan, San Ignacio Cayo, Orange, and now in San Pedro, La Isla Bonita. The Barry. Get more? Pay less.
Shell V-Power, with 3 times more cleaning and friction-reducing molecules. Go well. Go Shell.
It don't matter what part of the jewel they come from. You that you and me that me.
Well, let me give you a story about a cart, right? My uncle Raymond Flowers, one of the pioneers in plumbing, he worked with a man called William Vaughn. His name was William Vaughn. Mr. Vaughn was the head of the plumbing for PWD, Public Work Department. And he used to contract work on the side, and my uncle and Lloyd Flowers and Raymond Flowers were the plumbers, and they used to hire us on the side to do the labor work. At 8, 9 years old, we used to plumb pipes. Get on one end, somebody get on one end, one person on the other end, and we twist that, thread the pipes. Okay. Yes, 1/2-inch pipe, 1-inch pipe, 1.5-inch pipe. We used to plumb houses. Mr. Vaughn had a bicycle cart, and my mother used to wash for Stacy Dockyard, Mr. Stacy, back at Pilgrim Sawmill. And every Monday morning, I used to go back there and get a big bundle of clothes tied in a sheet. And I would put it on my head and walk from Stacy Dockyard to Racecourse Street. And my mother would wash those clothes and starch them and iron them. And on Thursdays, I would need to take them back. So we would go to Mr. Vaughn and ask him to use his bicycle cart so I don't mash up the clothes. You lay them in the cart and ride a bicycle cart 3-wheel and take them back. The payment for that was to fill a drum under Mr. Vaughn's house. But Mr. Vaughn was a plumber. I would take 4 buckets and put it in the cart, go to pipe. Pipe wasn't too far from him. Fill the buckets and come back and fill the drums. Go back, come back, fill the drums. I said, well, what's on this damn drum?
Careful.
Something not right. Yeah. You look, the man have a pipe through all the drums. They have about 8 drums.
So you're feeling
and
about
a
8?
valve. Yes. When the drum get about 3/4, that's okay, son. You don't have to do no more. You could go home now. All this time I'm gonna fill about 5 drums.
Continue.
Because they're all interconnected, right?
Yes.
So they're all at the same level, but then it's 8 times
Every
that
time
level.
I pour 4 buckets of water in one drum, he would open the valve,
And
the water would run to the other drums.
So you keep wondering what's going on. That's a good one.
And we couldn't say anything about that. Could not say anything. Another thing that happened to me when I was a very young man, I don't know who would remember Mr. Philip Young. He used to sell ice. And Mr. Philip used to go to the ice factory and buy these big
black
blocks
size.
of ice and chip them up, and we would go around. He had a mule and cart named Jim. And this, I mean, the mule named Jim, the cart named Jim, the mule. And everywhere Mr. Philip need to sell ice, this mule would walk there and stop right at the place where he needs to stop.
Because the mule already knew
Where to stop. But one day, my Uncle Lee again, working with Mr. Young, decided he's not going to work this day. And Mr. Young asked me if I wanted to work. Sure, you know, Saturday morning, I make my little martini money. So he worked from about 8 o'clock that morning until about 1 o'clock, 1:30 the afternoon, carrying ice to different stores and people home, a 5-cent piece, 10-cent piece, 25-cent piece to the stores. When I got through and I went for my pay, Mr. Philip gave me 3 cents. Mr. Philip gave me 3 cents, and again, we can't say anything. As kids, man, you know, they do things to you like this, older people, and there was nothing you could say about it, you know.
You had to work for your money.
We did, and not only did we have to work for it, we had to work very hard for it.
But you got to remember, too, putting things in perspective again, that in those days in the 50s and I think the late 40s as well, leading up to the 50s, that the answer to unemployment at the time was breaking rock stone at 1 cent a bucket, right? You know, people used to go and where the old Northern Highway was built, and they would break the rock stones and they were paid 1 cent a bucket because of the massive unemployment situation in the country. That's an interesting part of our history. So you all know about that?
Yes.
You know about that, right?
Yes. What my uncle and I used to do, we used to go up the highway, and we would pick mangoes in mango season, cashew in cashew season, whatever fruit is bearing. We used to go to Prisoner Creek and cut buttonwood and chop them up in pieces and put 3 in a bundle and go right under Miss Annette Meher lamp post right there at night or in the evening and sell them. Sell mangoes. We didn't steal. We didn't have to steal. I could remember after my grandfather left, that my grandmother had 8 children and 3 grandchildren. And there were times she used to say, my God, what am I going to feed these kids today? And there were always food. Not only there were food, everybody used to hang up at our house.
Yes.
And she used to feed everybody. Where it came from, I don't know, but it, you know.
There was always a neighborly thing, from what I can recall,
Yes.
where the sharing and,
Yes.
you know, and one of the phrases, I don't know if you all remember, it was, "Come in, me mecca."
But, you know, there was a lady called Miss Kelly. Her daughter, she had a daughter by the name of Ursula Langfester. She was the Queen of the Bay, I think, the Queen in 1953, right? Something like that.
I don't remember what year.
Yeah, but she was the Queen. But that lady was the custodian for Miss Annette Meher's school, and she used to empty buckets. But I could remember that lady coming many a days to my grandmother with a salsa, not a tea plate, a salsa. Here, Miss Flowers, I know things are bad. Here's a little something.
Wow. Yes.
You know, and she had nothing.
Caring.
She had nothing.
It was like one big family, Cecil. It was you felt it like you didn't have to lock your doors. You didn't have to do anything.
We used to sleep with our feet through the window.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm still getting emotional over that.
Well, it's good memories because it's something that we have been through.
Yeah.
Those were the days of my life in Belize.
Yeah.
And I can really appreciate Belize, what Belize have done for me. I was telling someone lately that I am glad, not that I've spent 60 years in America, but I'm more Belizean than I am an American. You know. And I'm not saying that knocking America, because America is the greatest place to live in the world. You know, you can do anything you want to do in America if you really want to do it. One of the most important things in America is to keep your name clean.
Yeah, and you have managed to do that for those 60 years.
Of course.
I
Of
remember
course.
my brother over there just now talking about St. Michael's College. I went there in January of 1958, and I stayed there until Hurricane Hattie, which was October 31st, I think 1961, Monday night. Never forget that. And those were some good years at St. Michael's College.
Yeah.
Father Miller was the principal. We had Mr. Morris, as you were talking about, Scasasola, and Mr. Greenwood, Leopold Greenwood. I think that college had the best soccer team, football as we call it. I think so. I think it was the best soccer. I remember we had the big schoolyard there, you know, and we used to play that soccer. We used to really play that soccer.
I wasn't that fortunate because when I finished primary school, I said to my mom, what high school am I going to go to? I think it was like $3 a month at the time to go to high school. And she told me like, hey, we couldn't afford that, you know. So I went to work at 12 years old.
What was that job you did, that first job?
My first job was working with William Vaughan, doing plumbing.
Oh, the plumbing thing.
Yes, we used to bail septic tank, you know, plumb homes. I worked with my uncle. And when I became about 13, 14, I went and worked in the grocery store where I used to purchase like a sack of rice, a sack of beans for the small. We used to go to Mr. What was his name on West Street?
On West Street, I remember.
He used to sell the whole store, wholesale.
I remember Ned Dunn.
No, Mr. Ned Dunn was on Berkeley Street. Yeah, he.
Not West Street.
He was one of the small. Ned Dunn sell grocery by the pound and stuff.
Yeah.
This
Retail.
guy, what's his name? His son sell ice cream. Blaze, Mr. Blaze. He had a hotel.
Blades ice cream.
Yes, but he had a hotel on West Street also, and an outlet where he sold whole like rice by the sack. We used to buy the wholesale, you know, and take it to the smaller stores them. And these stores like Mr. Smith would sell a pound of rice, 2 cent flour, 3 cent this and 2 cent that, you know. Those are the times I remember in the store, and that was my first good job making $3 a week.
Yeah. So you moved away from Belize when you were 15 years old, right? 16 years old. What prompted that decision?
Well, we had Hurricane Hattie, which everybody know about. Yes. And there was a lady in Washington, D.C. that was married to some politician. And she opened up the door for everybody that had relative living in America. The family can send for them. Okay. So my father was living in Washington, D.C., and he sent for me. I was 16 years old, and I lived with my father.
And you have lived here in the United States since?
Since.
Right. But you go home often?
Very often. I lived in Washington, D.C., and I stayed with my father for about 5 months. After that, I moved out on my own. I got married when I was 17 years old.
Young boy, man. Fell in love right away, or?
I thought I fell in love. You know, you're young, love is make you do a lot of crazy things.
Yes.
But got married when I was 17. I had a daughter. She just passed away June 5th of this year. Okay. She was 58 years old. Her name was Olga Irene McCoy. It was my firstborn. I have a son in Washington, D.C., Cecil Jr. I have a daughter and a son in California, Gail and Cedric. I have a daughter in Orlando,
Wow. You've been all over the place. Let's see.
Sicily, and of course you know my baby girl, Jalika. Yeah. Well, while I was in Washington, D.C., my thing was to, whenever Belizean come through, to put them up, just like I like to do now.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had some good friends pass through Washington, D.C. I remember Terrence Clark, Inspector Clark, Inspector Franklin, 44, you know, Inspector Adolphus.
So whenever they visit D.C., they would stay with you?
Yes. As a matter of fact, at that time, they used to come out for training. The police department used to send their inspectors out for training. And most of the time, they would stay at my home.
Okay. Now, what about you, Raymond? What led to you moving away from Belize?
Well, after I came out from St. Michael.
You were already 20 years old, you said, right?
But yeah, I left at 20,
20, yeah,
about 5 months after I was 20 years old. You know, my dad was, he was in the volunteer guard.
The British Honduras Volunteer Guard.
Yeah. And so he used to tell us, because he had all these boys, you know, only one girl. And you know, sometimes you're listening to your parents, you know, especially your dad, and being boys, you kind of have this great admiration for your dad, you know. And he used to tell us so often, the military makes you or breaks you. Yeah. He used to say that all the time. And sometimes I don't think they know that these kids are hearing those things, you know. And so when we had the opportunity to come to the United States, at that time the Vietnam War was just about at its very inception.
What year was it that you migrated there?
1965, October 65. I was in Brooklyn 6 weeks because I got to Brooklyn the 29th of October, and on the 17th of December, I was going into the Army. So I only spent about 6 weeks in Brooklyn. So you don't know anything. You don't know anything in 6 weeks, especially a large. So when I got into the military, I didn't have this fear of the war. But I think that thing was already embedded in us, you know. And then, you know, boys, you know, watching John Wayne and all these, and Marty Murphy, you know, and all these, you really want to mimic these guys, you know, and so it wasn't any fear. And kids sometimes don't know fear, as when we get older, we're pretty much aware of fear. But the thing about it is, although the possibility that I would have been going to war, it did not bother me that much. But getting there, then you find the reality.
So you actually went and served in Vietnam?
Yeah, got wounded also.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but...
Tell us, let's listen to you as you tell us this experience.
Yeah. So I spent 8 weeks of basic training in Seattle, Washington, and then another 8 weeks. And then in September of that year, I came home, I think for 6 weeks, in September of 1966 now. And then we were shipped over to Vietnam. In those days, we didn't fly as they used to eventually. We took the boat, we took a boat that left from Seattle to Okinawa. And it took us about 21 days from Seattle to Okinawa. And although I practically grew up on the sea, the Pacific Ocean, I know when we were growing up, you always heard Pacific means peace, right? Yeah. It wasn't peaceful. That ocean is not peaceful.
It's not a peaceful ocean. No.
Oh, gosh. Sometimes we were having meals. And when the sea is so rough, we had trays. Those trays would be going from one side of the wall to the other side, just slamming from one side to the other. Then they still want us to have PT on the deck. And we get out on that deck and we'd be vomiting in each other's back because we're in formation.
Yeah.
And we'd be vomiting in each other's back. And well, we got to Okinawa, and then from there it took us, I don't remember how long, from Okinawa to Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam. When we got to Cam Ranh Bay, now we were going to take trucks because Cam Ranh Bay is a large Air Force base. That's peaceful there. Yeah. Going to where our bases were, that's when the trouble began. And that's when I realized,
serious business, huh?
It's not lightweight, but what we anticipated, war is very serious. But I think, with the preparations that they gave us and all the other things, there were some real threatening times, I should say, when you feel like you weren't going to make it. And eventually, on April 3rd, 1967, because I was only there for 1 year, we got there we left Seattle September 21st, 1966. So we were only supposed to be there until September 21st, 1967. In April 3rd, I think it was a Tuesday, 1967, that's when I got wounded.
How did that happen?
It happened because we called in the bombs from the planes. And my understanding is sometimes, the nomenclature of where these bombs are supposed to fall, sometimes they don't fall in the right place. And they were falling nearer to us. And one of the shrapnels from one of those bombs hit me in my left leg in the back here. Fortunately, I believe God has a divine plan for every one of us. I really believe so. I don't think things just happen just like that by coincidence. And when I got wounded, they moved me from the front line, as we would call it, to on the seacoast, South China Seas, a place by the name of Phan Rang Bay. And for the next few months, that's where I spent my time as a military police. Although I was wounded, received the Purple Heart because I got wounded. And I spent the time until September 21st when I left from there and came to Japan, But I would say that those 2 years were very rewarding years. They were, a lot of things could have happened.
You could have lost your life, because a lot of people lost their lives in that war.
Yeah, and then the thing too, you think about, parents, you're gone, but it's something that live with parents and families when those kind of things happen like that, those occurrences. So fortunately, if I had stayed after I got wounded out there, I think I would have gotten hurt real bad. At the time, they weren't allowed. They didn't allow two siblings to be there at the same time. So as soon as I came back, my brother went. And I must say that he had a very terrible time.
Worse than you?
Yeah, I really believe so. I really believe so. I really believe he had it worse than I did, because it was right around the Tet New Year's.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's when the offensives are usually on big time.
Yeah, he really had it hard. But most of us, we come back, and I believe by the grace of God, I'm not as, the display of PTSD does not really, it doesn't manifest itself as much. But we do come back with that PTSD. And from time to time,
translate that for me?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. And I do see it sometimes. My brother, my younger brother, Kenneth, he was in the military also. We talk about this kind of thing from time to time. It's there.
And it's something you carry for your life, right?
That's what they say. I'm at the VA. As a matter of fact, I was there yesterday and Monday. So I'm there at least 2 or 3 times a week. And this is from, when I came back in 1967 because of the racial situation here, when I started to go to the hospital in Los Angeles, the doctor said, nothing is wrong with me. That's what he said. He wrote it in the record. Nothing was wrong with me. So I'm so very grateful now that the VA is recognizing all these veterans that are coming back, And
the VA is the Veterans Authority Administration, yeah.
And they're really taking care of the veterans now, you know, because it wasn't that bad with me, but when I look at some of these cases with these younger men.
No legs and that kind of sort of things,
Of course, yeah.
The horrors there, and to even be there, knowing that the possibility could happen
yeah.
to you, might have been, it's definitely a terrible experience.
It is a terrible, and now when I'm in my meetings, I remember sometimes with the ones coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, we're in these meetings and I see they're just going like that. You know, shaking.
Yeah.
But they're trying to do the best they can by being in these meetings because they feel like these meetings can help us psychologically to some point, you know. Again, thank God I did not get to that. I was at the time when I first came back, there were some experiences, but it seems like it, by God, the grace of God, it pretty much.
Must be an awful experience to hear bombs dropping around you and exploding around you, and seeing your friends dropping. I would never want to go through that.
Ray said, "Thank God." You heard how many times he said that? And this is something that we share a lot, that we make sure that we have in our lives God. We listen to you a lot on your show, and some special shows you talk about that love, and that comes from God. The protection, all good things. You need it, and you know, and you have that connection. You, faith, man.
Yes, it is.
You know.
It is.
It's a connection.
And when you know that you know, you know, it makes a difference.
We will wrap up our conversation with Cecil Mckoy and Raymond Peters after a word from our partners: Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust, the Barry, Shell Belize, and the National Gas Company.
The National Gas Company Limited was born of the need for the country of Belize to have a marine gas terminal of its own, thereby securing supplies of critical cooking gas for a growing population. As Belize's population grew, the time came for a modern marine gas terminal that ensured safety, security of supply, and the requisite infrastructure for industry-accepted quality assurance now demanded by the people of Belize. In 2020, the National Gas Company Limited became a reality. The National Gas Company Limited is a $60 million public-private partnership where Belize's private sector would design, finance, construct, and manage a state-of-the-art national marine terminal facility and 2 complementary storage depots away from the coast. After 15 years, the National Gas Company would be fully turned over to the country and people of Belize at no cost to the taxpayer. The National Gas Company of Belize, fueling Belize forward.
Since 2008, the Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust has created opportunities for Belizeans to develop themselves and their communities. The Trust employs tools that are intuitive, collaborative, and accessible so that every Belizean is empowered to achieve their full potential. Over 200,000 Belizeans have been impacted because of our various initiatives. The Belize Natural Energy Charitable Trust, empowering Belizeans of today to create the Belize of tomorrow.
We are the Barry, offering you great products, good service, and of course, the lowest prices in the entire country. Visit us in Belize City, Belmopan, San Ignacio Cayo, Orange, and now in San Pedro, La Isla Bonita. The Barry. Get more? Be less.
Shell V-Power, with 3 times more cleaning and friction-reducing molecules. Go well. Go Shell.
It don't matter what part of the jewel you come from. You that you
So now, Ray, that you're out of the army, what do you do?
Well, when I came out from the military, the thing about it, when I came out in 1967, again, I was living in New York, so I started working with one of the banks in downtown in Manhattan. And one of the things you're not aware of your behavior. A lot of times when it doesn't matter if a man is a lunacy over there, is a lunatic over there. Sometimes he's not aware of his behavior. I know for all those years I raised my children, I saw there was an anger situation, but I thought it was just response to whatever may be going on.
Yeah.
All of the veterans, they come back with this anger situation. Monday again, I was in anger management class group, but I'm doing great.
So that experience in Vietnam affects you up until today. So that's something that scarred your life forever, that experience. That's what I'm gathering from you, that's something you will never be able to get over completely.
The meetings, they help us because when I listen to the veterans, they have issues going into Walmart because Walmart is always so crowded. Oh. I think we prefer to be isolated. It looks so very much, seems like you could live your life just, that way.
All the extra. But you know what I think helped him, even though I'm not in his shoe, because we talk. When you talk to guys like Junior Bishop, you talk to guys like myself that we raise up with, it seems like all that, it doesn't go away, but it soothes all that, yeah.
So that was good therapy just now to allow you to talk about Belize, right?
Of course, because it's only about a few of us at our age now that are really close, unless when we go to Belize, we meet some of the older classmates and we talk. But it's so good to really, it's like therapy. I mean, just to talk to the old guys about school and growing up and everything else. So this really is a therapy by itself, too.
And I'm learning a lot from listening to you guys as well, because I'm getting the information from you firsthand. I'm not reading it in any book. I'm getting it from someone who actually been through it and who we can be proud of.
Something I want to say about every one of us, God has a plan for all of us. I really believe that the night we settled in Vietnam, we settled down, and we dug a small little foxhole, just a shallow little foxhole about that high. And the guys over there, they dug a deep foxhole.
Okay.
Because we always have the entrenching tools, the little shovels, right? The artillery came in that night, hit that tree, and fell right on the guy's, cut off his arm right away.
Wow.
And when you're young, you're inquisitive. The next day, we went because they buried the arm. The next day when we went to look for the arm, we found the arm. And because of the dirt being black, the arm was covered with black sand all over, And one of the awesome things is to hear men bawling. Women cry, they're more emotional, right? But to hear men bawling when these kind of things are happening, and it really just, I think it stays with you. Because you don't hear men bawl a lot, right? But
imagine you and I are together, something happens, and you're gone.
Mm-hmm. And
you're gone.
They're bawling, and we are over here, and we think maybe it will happen to us too, But I think that's destiny. I really believe it's destiny. Because, and he was a close friend of mine. His arm was cut off just like that. Wherever he is today, with the medical profession and how things have advanced, I think he's okay. He's mobile enough to be active to do the things that maybe if he's still alive, to do those things.
What about those who didn't come back?
I was very fortunate because when I went to Washington, D.C. after...
You didn't go to war, right?
No, I went to, I'll never forget, 700 I Street was where you go to sign up to join the service, the Army. There was a man out there saying, Uncle Sam wants you.
Yeah.
Remember that sign?
That.
And I went
I've seen that sign too.
700 I Street in Washington, D.C. And I went in there and I started filling out the form. And this white guy looked at me and say, go home. Look right in my face and say, go home. You know, you don't need to be here. Go home.
Just like that?
Just like that. Say, go home.
Go home, you don't need to be here. And you left.
And at that time, they used to sign up for the draft. Everybody, as you turned 18, you had to sign up for the draft. You know, I went and tried to sign up. They wouldn't even accept my application and tell me to go home. You know, and that's what saved me from going to Vietnam.
Oh, that's powerful. You know, sometimes, like you said, the messages come in various ways. You know, like God is in control.
Yeah,
You know?
could have been that God spoke through that man, you know.
And I've had several incidents in my life where I know that it's by the grace of God that I am sitting here now. You know, I've lived in Washington, D.C., where guys picked up guns and pulled to your head and pulled the trigger, and the bullet jumped out.
That has happened to you?
Yes. You know,
Give us some of those experience being in Washington.
at the wrong time. You know, I've been homeless, you know, not for long. There were times when my meal for the day was a cup of coffee and a donut. You know, you come to this country and you think that it's all peaches and cream. And at that time, there wasn't that many Belizeans here, so you don't have that many people to turn to, you know.
The question would be then, what kept you going? Why, you know, did you ever think of, oh, this is so hard, let me go back home?
To go back to.
You didn't have a home in Belize to go back to?
No, that was my grandfather's home.
Okay.
That was my grandfather's home. And I promised myself, and God told me I was going to get through this. I wasn't going to stay in it. You know, and that is the reason why today I don't have that many friends now associate. My friend is Christ. You know, you and I sit down at our table many a times and we talk about that love and that peace and that understanding, and, you know, that is what my life is about today. I have lived more years than I am going to live, so the rest of my life should be peaceful and loving and joyful.
Yeah, you keep telling me that, and you're right, and people say, well, how you come, why would you make a declaration? I said, no, yes, I do. This is where I stay whenever I'm in my, right here at Uncle C's, right? So I would get up in the morning and go around the breakfast table, and we would sit there sometime and I think you visit sometime, Ray, right? I remember Ray visiting sometime, and we sit around that breakfast table and we solve every problem in the world. But for some reason, we have not, even though we have not spoken as in depth like we are doing at this point in time, because I've seen the emotions that you have expressed about the time in the army. I've seen your emotions come to play. But when we're sitting at a table, we just make much of each other. You know, and the more try to solve Belize's problems from afar.
Yeah.
So it was good to sit here and reminisce and listen to your stories. Maybe we could switch a little bit now to your work and your relationship, your present relationship with our beloved country, Belize, because that's what the three of us have in common. We're born in Belize, right? So let's look at your relationship with the homeland.
Right now, because of the COVID, you know, I'm not too involved. If somebody's coming from Belize and they needed a place to stay, or they needed information, or whatever way I can help, because I know the system and the way it works in this country, I try to lead them in the right way. I was never political in Belize, not even here. You know, politics is a dangerous game, and I am neutral. I am for people. You know, I don't care. the people that have passed through my homes, you know, from Honorable Philip Golson to Honorable Linda Rogers, you know, and I can come right down the line, the people that have stayed in this house. And I never played politics. It was always, you're a Belizean, and that is what interests me. I'm here to help my Belizean in whatever way I can or whatever I can do.
You're an active part too of the association here in Belize, the Belize Association of Florida.
Association. I used to be when it was better organized with the older Belizeans. We had some younger Belizeans that took it over that wasn't too mature. You cannot have a Belizean association if you don't know nothing about the country. You cannot represent the country if you don't know about the country. You know, so you need people that knows about the country to represent the country. If somebody asks you a question and you can't answer and you're the president of the association, it's an embarrassment for the country.
So maybe we should look at it as an opportunity now to ensure that we provide knowledge about Belize to these leaders of the association, that we come and we impart whatever knowledge we have of our country to them, right?
It's to our children, that was born here.
Yeah.
Because they are not as interested in Belize as we are.
Yeah.
They are American. Like I say, I came here at 16, and I could have become an American too, but I remain a Belizean.
Yeah.
My daughter is an American. All my children are Americans, even though they talk Creole and they act like Belizean, they're still Americans. They grew up into this environment and they're a part of it.
What would you read?
Well, what happened, although I was working in the banks and everything else, for most of us, we become alcoholics. To me, I was a moderate drinker, but I used to drink a lot, and then we started fooling around. I would say we were good boys in school, We had our little issues on the side there, but we tried to learn as much as we were there for and everything else. And when I started to drink, and the Lord again intervened. When I was 32 years old, I could sense the calling. And I started to go to church. And now I am an ordained minister.
Okay.
So back in...
You gave all that up?
Gave it up. But it wasn't easy, very challenging. But anyway, we wanted to have a ministry down in Belize. And so I had gone to various radio stations to see if we could have J. Vernon McGee Through the Bible broadcast through one of the radio stations. So we ended up with one in Belmopan, right outside of Belmopan.
My Refuge.
My Refuge, yeah, on top of the, So we had them on there we were broadcasting through them for, I say almost a year. But the listenership was very, very poor. And there were no donations. We were donating out of our own resources. And eventually we had to close it down. And I still feel bad about that because the word needs to be spread across the whole earth.
Yeah.
And that was the medium that we were led to try to bring it through. Love FM is doing a good job. Every Sunday morning I listen on 6 and 7 o'clock to the one coming out of Belmopan with Watchman Witness Lee. Out of San Diego. This Sunday I listened.
Pastor Carlton Arthur's on a little later on.
Yeah, and so I listened to those programs on Love FM. But we could never have too much when it comes to Christianity. Could never have too much. Could never have too much God. Could never have too much Christ. Yeah. Especially in these times when the signs are there, and We just need to get it out. But that's what I'm doing now. My wife, we're doing it on Zoom now, and my wife is the pastor, and I assist her. And we're doing as much as we can under these conditions right now.
You know, I think this is what my country is lack of, this spiritualness, because, you know, I see people do things in Belize that if you had that spirit in you, you would not do. You know, like you are possessed. When we were in school, we went to church, I think, twice a week, right? We used to go to church from school. They take us over from the school to the church twice a week.
And prayers in the mornings.
Prayers in the morning. We couldn't go to matinee if you didn't go to Sunday morning, Sunday school. You know, if you wanted to go to matinee. And I think this is what we are lack of. We're not teaching our youngsters about God, about having faith. If you want something, you can have it. It's all here for all of us. You know, you could be an owner, you could be a renter, whatever you want to be. It's here for all of us. But you have to know how to get it. You know, you can't go there and take something that doesn't belong to you. That is called stealing.
And you won't get there started today and get there tomorrow. It's a journey.
Yes, it takes time.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
I am 77 years old and I am not there yet.
Still a work in progress.
I'm still, yes, I'm still trying. I have a 10-year-old daughter that I'm still trying to teach. I'm still learning from.
You're learning from your daughter.
Yes. You know, so we need to bring God back in our lives. We need to bring the spiritualness back in our life for us to be successful in life. Our success is not money. It's not wealth. It's not, that is not, because we can't take it with us.
Love.
That's what it is.
Love.
I agree. It's love.
Love.
I agree. It's love. Now, since we're talking about love now, you know what's the greatest commandment, right? You are the pastor.
Love. Love.
Love one another. Love your brother. Love yourself.
Love.
Love God first. Love your neighbor as
Love the
yourself.
Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. But, you know, it's not like we are three preachers here, but I come from a family of reverends as well. You know, my mother was Reverend Helen General, my grandfather was Reverend James Elliott, so obviously I had to have a bit of that in me. Even though I'm not a reverend, I'm not an ordained minister, and I don't think that's a career I've chosen for myself.
That is the reason you are successful. You probably would not have been able to be here without the prayers of your mother and your father and your grandfather, all those people. I am praying for my great-grandchildren that have not been born as yet. You know, I do that.
But there's a little part in that commandment that I think sometimes it's mixed up, right? Love your neighbor as yourself, which means that you have to love yourself first before you can love your neighbor. Now, I've had this discussion with several people here because it's one of the parts that of that rule that I studied very carefully, you know, particularly when I was governor for my Rotary district, 2015, 2016, when I chose love as a topic to talk about, you know, that commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. And every research will tell you that you have to love yourself first before you love your neighbor. And common sense will tell you, and I don't know if you guys could talk to this, that if I don't have something, I can't give what I don't have. So if I don't have love and I don't know love, how can I spread love and how can I love my fellow human being when I don't even know what love is at all? You know? So it starts, love God, love yourself, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. What you want for you is what you want for your neighbor. You don't want to be killed, so you don't want your neighbor to be killed. You don't want to, you don't want to be poor, so you don't want your neighbor to be poor either. You don't want to be hit by a car, so you don't want your neighbor to be hit by a car either. You love your neighbor as you love yourself.
And you know, it's very interesting about that because there are three aspects of love, right? You have the agape love, which is from the Greek, agape. Then you have the filial love. Then you have the eros love. The filial love is the brotherly. That's where the name Philadelphia comes from. Yeah. That's the reason why they call it the city of brotherly love, because that's where the word came from. Then you have the eros love. And that's the love that we have intimately with our erotic love, eros. You know, but the greatest of these love is the agape love, the God kind of love. And that's the one you're talking about. We have to get there.
Unconditional.
We have to get there. That's the goal, to get there. You know,
And once you get that, you conquer everything. You know, you conquer everything.
Doesn't matter what anybody does to you, you still love them. What they say, what they do, you still love them. It's Christ. Yeah. And he did not. If he did not love us, he wouldn't have come. I think about it. When he looked up there and saw the chaos down here, and he could have easily said, I'm not going down there. Somebody else will have to go. That man came down here, knew what he was going through. And I read, you know, where in the hall, the night of the judgment there, they were slapping that man. If somebody punches you, it's not as embarrassing as when somebody slaps you. They were slapping that man, spitting in his face and everything else that night before the day of the crucifixion, right? And you think he didn't know all this he would have gone through for you? He could have easily said, I'm not going down there and let them abuse me like that or persecute me that way. He still came.
But that's the only way,
and it's an individual thing. I still say that if you were the only one here on earth, that man still would have come. When he saw that you're a sinner, he still would have come. Yeah, for one, he would have come.
That's what he said.
Well, that's the story of the 99 sheep that was left behind, and he went and looked for the one.
That's love.
That's the same. That's the same principle.
So one thing, then, if you would address your fellow Belizeans, the solution to what we face in this world really is the lack of love, right? The lack of love.
Satan gets in there and confuses it because God is not the author of confusion. So who else is confusing man with all the politics and everything? It's Satan. But we always say we have people who throw their rocks, but you don't see their hands, right? He throw it out there, and when something goes wrong, we blame God because you never see him because he's a spirit too. But he's the one causing all the chaos in the world today. Yes.
So the message now to your fellow Belizeans from here in Miami is a message of love.
Amen.
Right?
I agree.
Because you all love your country, you all love what you have done, what you have achieved in life, and you love each other. So it's about love, right? The agape love.
The agape love.
If you love me, you will not want to harm me. You will not want to do anything that is negative to me if you love me.
So the solution to it really is to teach ourselves to love ourselves first.
Start to overlook some things.
And then when I wouldn't want Cecil knock me, so I want to knock Cecil for, you know?
Don't do unto others as you wouldn't like others to do unto you.
The golden rule is based on that same part about love your neighbor as yourself.
And the thing about it is, you know, I would say to everybody, you may be hard on yourself, but God loves you. No matter who you are, what you have done. You could have done the most dastardly thing. He still loves you.
That's right. And so you got to love him back. So you see, it's all about love. Love God with all your heart and soul and love your neighbor as yourself.
There's no other answer. Just like one and one make two, the answer is love.
It's love.
You know, and if you don't have it, like you say, you can't give it. And if you can't give it, you will never enjoy it. If you don't get it, you'll never enjoy it. You don't know what life is about.
It's a beautiful thing.
Come from within.
And makes you more beautiful too.
And it inspires you.
Yes.
But you know, like you both of you gentlemen will tell me, and we have choices. We could choose not to love, and we could choose to love. right?
Isn't that amazing? Because, you know, I've went through that before. I remember I got so angry with my wife before God bless the dead that I was angry enough of thinking just the thought of killing. That's how angry I got. And I went and I prayed and I asked the Lord never to let this side of me and this kind of thoughts enter into my, that is in me, let it stay there. Don't let nobody bring that out in me. You know, I only want the best that comes out of me. Nobody should bring out no evil out of me. And we all have it in us.
But on the other hand, you don't want them to want to do you that as well. So.
Well, that is the reason why, and like I say, God is the answer through Jesus Christ. My belief, and I'm not trying to force that on anybody, that is my belief. That is the reason I'm sitting here today, because I believe that. You know, and that is my answer. I have already found my answer. Yeah. I don't have any, Christ is not lost and I am not lost. You know, I know exactly where he is.
You know what I found out? I found out that people are not bad. They can do some of the worst things to you, right? But I found out people are not bad. It's the devil finds these weak vessels. Because sometimes the devil can come to you and say, I want you to do this. And if you're aware that he's the one trying to put this foolishness in your head, you can say, I'm not going to do that. Of course. But some people are not aware of it, and so they do these things because he finds that weak vessel that he can work through, and they come after you and they do different things to you. But basically, they're not bad people. He just works through weak vessels to get to you. The person is not bad, is not a bad person, but if they know, if they are cognizant that there is a devil, a real devil, and that he will find these vessels to work through to create all the chaos, they would say, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And he would have to find somebody else to go and do it through. But that person is a good person. It's just that sometimes we are weak and it looks for weak vessels.
And that's where we make the choice, right?
That's where we make the choice.
That's
especially
the choice.
when we know.
Yes.
When we are aware of his tactics.
Yeah. We say that at the end of all our shows, right? Thanks for choosing love. But, you know, people will say, okay, we are saying for the radio station. Yes, thanks for listening to the radio station. Thanks for listening to love and choosing to love. But more important, we say thanks for choosing to love, right? Thanks for choosing love as against another way of doing things, you know? So that's what we usually say. That's why we say it, because we have choices, like Cecil just mentioned just now. We do have choices, right, in life, right?
I found out, I'm an upholsterer, and I've been doing that for 58 years, doing furniture. And I don't love anything more than doing that.
That's what you love?
My love comes out in my work. I don't have a dissatisfied customer because I love what I do. I love what I do. I enjoy what I do.
It comes out in different forms, yeah.
And I believe, I don't care what it is you do. I've had women to cook for me and say they love me and the food tastes like I don't know what. And I've had women that say I love you and they cook that food with love and you can tell the difference. You know, you can tell the difference when a food is cooked with love or when it isn't cooked with love. Just like anything else. You know that love when you runs on it. You know, you know it. You it's a spiritual thing. You know.
So love is always a choice. Yes. We choose to love. Yeah. And you know, and the greatest of these is love. And so, as usual, I think because of time, I'll just have to say it at this point in time, right? Okay. Because of time, right? You know, Belize and beyond, thanks for choosing love.
Amen.
Amen. Belize Watch, knowledge of the past, impacting the present, building the future.
Celebration time. It don't matter what part of the jewel you come from. You that you